Hey, what's going on? My name is Raul Hinojosa. I'm a mental performance consultant, and I specialize in strength and tactical athletes to work on their mental performance to bring their best self. So, the topic for today's video that I wanted to address is the differences between guilt and shame, right? So, I'm going to go a little over what the two are, what the differences are, what are the second and third order effects of using them, and how to use them, right? So, what is it? So shame and guilt. So shame is whenever you use someone's identity to address something, a situation, but something that someone did. You use their identity to, to address them, right? So if someone messes something up, they might be given a label, or they might hear something along the lines of, hey, this is what they always do. They always do this. Guilt is where you address the behavior, the situation, the task that got them the result, right? Now, what does it look like? Or what can happen? So if someone is given a label, right? So if someone is constantly being given a label, the chances of them messing up again are extremely high, because they're going to spend more time trying to avoid that mistake. So that mistake is at the top of their mind whenever they're doing whatever it is they're doing, right? So their goal is to avoid the failure, right? And if that's all that's in your mind, you're more likely going to replicate that behavior that you're trying to avoid, right? It's counterintuitive. Versus if someone is focusing on just getting the steps right that they were told to correct, their chances of messing up or having an undesired effect are going to be much lower. And that's kind of the premise, right? So that's like the overall premise of using shame and guilt, and why it's important to use them from the performance aspect. Right, so whenever we go into the other side, right, the more extreme, the effects that it can have on the person individually, right, not just in that task, but also in the rest of their lives. So an example that I like to give is with a student, a kid coming into kindergarten or pre-K, right. The kid is 4 to 5 years old. They just learned how to use the bathroom recently, and they just learned how to walk. I mean, they're 4 to 5 years old. They're extremely young. So they get to pre-K, and then they mess something up, right? They may mess something up over and over again. Now, the interesting thing is that kids, when they come into elementary school, they have an idea of what not to do. They know what not to do, because the first thing that we're told growing up is what not to do, right? Don't do this, don't do that. So kids, when they get to that point, they generally know what to avoid. So that means that they don't know what the right thing is yet, right? They know what the right thing is in everything else, but now all these kids are coming into this one setting together where they all have different experiences and different backgrounds, different ways that they've been brought up in those 4 to 5 years. And they're learning off of each other, right? They're learning off of each other. They're learning from the educator and things like that. So if a kid comes in and messes something up, and the teacher, goes straight to, and it may not happen that way, right? But if a teacher, regularly has to get onto somebody for that entire school year, and then it resorts to them getting a label of being a bad kid, this kid now has had a label from this first year, right? That they've internalized. Hey, like I keep messing this up. They're going to go into the first grade or either kindergarten, first grade, depending on if they started pre-K, right? They're going to go to that next year with that label in their head, right? Because, and past that, they might even replicate the behavior at home, because, mind you, the kids spend, 10 months out of the year with teachers, majority of the workday, and only 2 days a week with their parents, right? So overwhelming majority of the time is spent with the teacher. So the teachers have a lot of influence on how they talk to, the teachers have a lot of influence on the kids' development and how they perceive themselves, how they perceive others, and things like that, and what's right from wrong, right? Now, through the years, this kid is going through with this label that was implanted in him all the way back when he was in pre-K or kindergarten. he's living up to that label because this is all he knows, right? No one took that time to correct his behavior rather than just labeling him or giving him that label. And the same thing is applicable to adults, right? So if an adult, like let's say a soldier, is labeled to be a troubled soldier throughout their life, throughout the military, and they get to the point, and then their leader finds out that this is a troubled soldier. The difference with adults is that we can look back at our past and look at the past of others, and we're very quick to make a judgment, right? Make a quick judgment call, right? And this is not inherently a bad thing, Now think about it. We do judge people based on appearance, based on actions that they've done in the past, and this is a safety thing. You're not gonna go up to a stranger and maybe give them a hug or maybe leave your wallet around a stranger. You're not gonna do that regardless of what they do. So you just judge a person based on just appearance, right? So it's inherently not a bad thing, but what happens is that we end up pushing that label onto that person, and we keep digging the label into that person that they're a troubled soldier, troubled this, troubled that. That person's just going to give up, right? Their motivation to want to do anything is going to diminish to nothing, right? And then they're not going to have any self-confidence, which is going to in turn become a cycle of failure, right? So how do we fix that? It all starts with how we address behavior, right? So addressing the behavior by making someone understand why something is wrong, and maybe even connecting some sort of emotional component by making them feel bad, right? We don't remember situations as much as we remember emotions. You may not remember a situation that happened 10 years ago, but you probably remember how you feel, and whether you like that or not is going to depend on whether you want to do it again or not, So it's important to remember that we remember emotions and we remember how we feel when we do something. So if someone is associating shame and with something that they did, they're more likely going to either fail or avoid it altogether, and then you're just not going to have someone reliable to help you out. Versus, you make a correction. They may have some sort of sad or down feeling, but you give them something to work on with guilt, right? They have a goal, they have an objective to fix. So that's the video for today, right? So the takeaway, my to-go box for everybody is take that extra step to identify behavior specifically and address that, right? If you're trying to influence. And this goes for the same way for construction too, which that'll be a whole separate video. Even the video, I'll make another video topic on constructive, and also if you're on the receiving end of this, how can you move forward? How can you address it? Right. So that's all I got. If you guys have any questions, leave them down in the comments. Follow me on Substack. I'm going to publish an article on this topic. It's going to be a little more in detail. I'll plug in some references and some different examples, different settings. But yeah, let me know if you guys enjoy the video, and we'll see you guys next time.